I.O.T, powering the digital economy. Brought to you by Schneider Electric.
For today's consumers, there's a wider choice of goods on offer than ever before, and consumers' appetite for getting new products more quickly keeps on growing. Innovations in digital technologies are helping manufacturers meet those new consumer demands. But they're not only changing the way these products are made, they're also transforming the actual goods themselves. In this programme, I'll visit a cosmetics company headquartered in Paris to find out how digital technology is changing its end-to-end manufacturing processes. I'll find out how a fashion technology company is making mass customization possible with the potential to disrupt the fundamentals of global manufacturing. We'll talk to an expert about the regulatory issues facing manufacturing companies. And we'll discover how digital tech looks set to change the way manufacturers produce goods for the consumer market yet more in the future. L'Oreal is the world's largest cosmetics company. It was founded in 1909 and has 41 plants around the world. I'm here just outside of Paris at L'Oreal's global headquarters for research, innovation and operations. Stéphane Lannozel is Operations Chief Digital Officer at L'Oreal. He's an engineer by background and has worked there since 2014. I asked Stéphane about the digital transformation at L'Oreal.
You know, the digital transformation, we often talk about technology. But what counts is not the technology, it's really the consumers. And our CEO, Jean-Paul Agon, often says that the consumers, they have changed more in the last 3 years than in the past 30 years.
So what sort of changes have there been?
In simple words, consumers, they want anything, anywhere, at any time. That's the consumers of today. So they want a large offering of products. When we launched new lipsticks in the past, we were developing 12 to 16 different shades. Now it's more than 80. Another big consumer's expectation is also about personalization, you know, getting the right product that are really tailored to their need, their skin tone, their skin type.
To meet these demands, L'Oreal is using digital tech at every stage of the manufacturing process.
We use new technology in the way we design products. We use a combination of new technology in the way we manufacture the products and also in the way we distribute. Let me give you one example in the initial phase of the value chain, which is the product design. You know, we always start from a sketch from the designer. Then we work with the packaging team to prepare a technical drawing. But the revolution is now with 3D printing. You know, from the design to the first prototype, we are able to do that, you know, within hours, when before it was taking a few months. So these are some of the 3D printed prototypes that we saw.
Right.
And this is the actual finished products. This enables us to validate the shape, the look, the usage. Last year we 3D printed more than 15,000 prototypes like this.
Wow.
Here in Paris, in Shanghai, in New York, you know, these little 3D labs are really helping us in accelerating the design and cutting really the design phase to a few hours.
So transformative.
It's a game changer.
Is it also enable you not just to design quicker, but for instance to make a more agile production process as well?
Yes, it's true that, you know, downstreams we also need to be able to adapt our production to the trends, and the trends, you know, are more and more difficult to catch. It's more and more difficult to predict the consumer. We had about 2 years ago one influencer in Korea, and for Valentine's Day she put on her blog a little note saying that I want my friend to bring me that exact lipstick for the Valentine's Day. And within a matter of days, people were queuing in the shops, and also we were out of stock.
Yeah, so this is a nightmare for you.
So that's a nightmare, but that's the new world in which we live. And so what it means is we are also working on the manufacturing part to make sure that we improve the agility. that we develop new manufacturing lines that are able to cater with such volatile demand. We use smart sensors to get the right information at the right time. We also are using magnetic conveyors to bring the products to the distribution pods. We are also using artificial intelligence algorithms to get exactly the right information from all the sensors and make predictive maintenance on that lines. We have equipped our employees with digital tablets so that they can get the right information of what is the product running on the line and also get ready to the next production. So we use a lot of what we call cobots, collaborative robots. So these robots basically they can work close by with the workers and almost end to end, and also they are very easy to program. They are very easy to move around. So this is a new generation of robots that is making our production line much more flexible.
Stefan gave me an example of the difference these technologies have made to a production line manufacturing perfume bottles.
On that line, using all these new technologies, we were able to reduce the time from going to one product to the other from 4 hours to 20 minutes. So reducing drastically the time between two products.
One of the other big themes in consumer demand is customization. How does digital technology allow you to do that?
It's true, personalization is a big trend in the cosmetics industry, and we are tackling that at both hands. First, at the manufacturing part, the aim for us is to get to what we call the batch of one, which is being able to make one product by itself. So all these new technologies helping on that. But we are also tackling that on the shop site. And we have launched for the Lancôme brand a machine that is called Teint Particulier that can do your foundation to your exact skin tone. And it's within a combination of 22,000 different combinations that we will find the one that is exactly for you. And within a matter of minutes, we will be able to make that for you at the point of sale.
Clearly, digital technology has allowed you to catch up with changes in consumer trends much more quickly. But is it enabling you to stay ahead of the game, actually?
I think we are using digital technology like data and artificial intelligence to capture some new trends. We are developing some capability to listen to social media and to be able to capture all these small trends so that we can then use them to develop the new products and to stay ahead of the pack.
It's interesting hearing you describe the whole business, how the business is changing.
Yeah, we are getting more and more a tech company. In the end, you will still get a product.
Yes.
You will still use a foundation, a lipstick, which is a product. But to be able to make that right product for you to the quality standard, basically we are leveraging all this technology that I was describing to be quicker, to be more efficient, and to bring you the right products.
L'Oreal is a long-established company which is embracing digital tech to meet customers' changing expectations. But I'm now off to a business which has only been around for 5 years and is shaking things up in the fashion industry with a new solution for textile manufacturers. Somerset House on the banks of the River Thames was designed in 1776, around the time of the first industrial revolution. Part of the building is now home to a range of startups and small businesses, and it's where Unmade, a disruptive fashion technology business, is now based. Hal Watts is the co-founder and CEO of Unmade. His background is in engineering and industrial design. I asked Hal what makes the technology Unmade has developed disruptive.
Customization is kind of a starting point for that. So I think it's a very interesting space. I think consumers are very excited by it. And really, ultimately, we all want something that's a unique product. But for us, the real power in doing this is moving the fashion supply chain from where it is today, which is to design things, to manufacture in bulk and store it in a warehouse and then sell it, to one where you can design, sell, and then only manufacture something if someone buys it. So that just-in-time or on-demand manufacturing is really the power and the important bit of what we're trying to do.
And how novel is that?
Very. I mean, in terms of knitwear, we're the only company in the world that can do that today. We have a collection of patents and IP that we've developed around this.
And you began as your own manufacturer, is that right?
Yeah, so initially we had our own brand and we would sell directly to consumer, and we would manufacture all the products here in our office.
So you designed it, made it, sold it to consumer here?
Yeah, fully vertically integrated brand.
And now you've developed from that?
Yeah, so we realised quite quickly, the really interesting things we were doing was really the technology and the software. And the impact we could have if we were using that just to run our own consumer brand was quite small. Whereas if we actually took that technology and sold it to much larger organisations, we could have a much bigger impact on the supply chain.
Hal showed me how the technology works. The first step is for the customer to design their garment using Unmade's customization editor. I'm going to design a scarf. And I can choose my colours, but I have to say, as you can see from my shirt, I'm a sort of blue boy, so can we go with a blue design?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the pattern can be changed within certain parameters by dragging your finger across the screen. Very fun. That is good. All right, let's do that. That's my design. Then what would I do?
I mean, then you're basically back into a normal shopping experience at that point. So you say add to bag.
Add to bag.
It'll add it to your shopping cart. And then we go through checkout and then we can start manufacturing.
And that is now going off to one of your machines right now where it's going to be made?
Yeah,
at this
so
moment?
we go straight into production with it.
Right, let's go.
So the process here is exactly the same as someone knitting with needles, except there's hundreds and hundreds of needles.
Right. And how long does it take to knit?
About 30 minutes.
How technically difficult is it?
It is quite difficult.
Why?
So it's quite hard to predict the output of clothing machines. So for example, if you're knitting a sweater, you would probably have to make 5 or 6 and test that and change the programs to get it correct. So what we do is we actually virtualize all of that and we do it in the cloud. So we can do a lot of testing before we produce the product so we know we're going to get it right first time. And that involves quite a lot of complex physics and maths.
How difficult is it for manufacturers to adopt and integrate your software solutions?
So we try to make it as easy as possible by providing a solution that is purely software and runs on the existing machines. So a good example of this is we have a factory up in Scotland, Johnson's of Elgin, that we work with. They're one of the oldest knitwear manufacturers in the world, and they've been able to integrate our systems to help optimize their process and do on-demand manufacturing.
And prior to your technology, how long would it take for a manufacturer to set up a machine for a long run of a particular product?
Typically it would take anywhere between a few days and a week to set up a product and get it right so you could put it into production.
And your technology makes what difference?
So because we do a lot of that, we model it virtually in the cloud, we're actually able to do that instantly. So when a consumer comes on our site and designs a product, we can generate the manufacturing data and it will be correct straight away. So we can go straight into production as soon as it's designed.
To be clear, you're cutting setup time from up to 2 to 3 weeks to seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's a huge step. That is what enables custom manufacturing and on-demand manufacturing.
Your technology and business process allows delivery as well. I mean, it is the end-to-end process you can manage.
Yeah, well, what you realise quite quickly when you start going through the supply chain is if you're going to enable one-off manufacturing, you also need to enable one-off distribution and one-off shipping. So the logistics also becomes somewhat of a challenge. So what we do is we actually provide a solution where we can ship directly from the factory to the consumer as well.
And the significance for the industry, the fashion industry, of using this technology is what?
The real significance is that today, because everything is manufactured a long time ahead of when anyone's going to be buying it, you end up with huge amounts of waste. And by reversing the supply chain and manufacturing on demand, you can really eliminate all of that.
And how revolutionary is that?
Very. I mean, the industry today sees over 300 billion in waste a year.
In waste because people don't buy it?
Well, it's either product that just goes unsold or never leaves the factory to a distribution centre. Ultimately, if you can make the supply chain more efficient and manufacture on demand, you should be able to eliminate that.
There's a kind of irony here, isn't there, that we left the bespoke world a century or two ago and went to mass manufacturing. And your technology almost turns that clock back.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. I mean, if you think back to before the Industrial Revolution, everything was bespoke, effectively. You would make a product for a consumer and you'd probably know who they were. Whereas mass manufacturing obviously brought prices down and meant everyone could have more stuff. But it also means we had to buy into the idea that we'd all own the same thing, because that's how you get the economies of scale. And what we're really trying to say is, as has happened in other industries such as 3D printing, is now with modern technology, you can not only get the economies of scale that come with mass production, but you can also have an opportunity to make all of those products unique as well.
Digital innovation and changing consumer trends are transforming manufacturing in the B2C sector, but are regulatory regimes keeping pace? We'll find out in part 2. The rapid pace of digital innovation is opening up a whole new toolbox of capabilities for manufacturers. But what are the implications for both the regulators and their regulatory regimes? Peter Herweck is Executive Vice President of Industrial Automation at Schneider Electric and is an expert on manufacturing.
All kinds of different possibilities in respect to what people could manufacture and what data is available come to mind. From that perspective, I think we're just at the beginning of capturing what needs to be regulated. To give you one example, you can go to a 3D printer and you can print, for example, weapons. Should this be regulated? You know, I think so. Others may have a different opinion.
So how is Unmade faring in the regulatory world?
In terms of the regulations that we deal with, obviously because we are plugging into brands' websites and we are handling some consumer information in terms of their name or what the personalization of the product is, and then also how we're going to handle shipping that back to them, we have to make sure we comply with all the data regulations and security regulations. And because we're often working with brands that could be based in the US and factories that could be based in Europe or Asia, it means that we really do have to tread quite carefully on, you know, what legislation are we falling under as that data travels.
And how difficult is that, actually being, let alone complying with it, but being aware of those international data laws?
You have to have an expert who can do it. You know, we have lawyers that advise us on that.
LOreal operates in 140 countries worldwide. How does it manage different regulatory regimes around the globe?
It's a challenge because the regulations are different, and it's really the responsibility of the people running that country to ensure that we are compliant. And you know, that's a no-go. We are compliant in every single country where we operate.
In Europe, the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, comes into force in May 2018 and will dictate more clearly how personal data can be used.
I think the GDPR will be absolutely very, very important, given all the data that you know, personalized go into products. Just you know, imagine. For example, you want to print a sports shoe, so you will give your age, you will give your weight, you will give all kinds of data. So who's the owner of the data?
So we never actually own the data, we just pass it from somebody to somebody else. But that does actually have increased implications on our responsibilities as someone carrying that data. Certainly from a security perspective, a lot of the legislation or regulation that's in place around that can tend to be dated quite quickly because of the way modern software is developed compared to how it used to be. A very obvious change is, you know, when you used to buy software, you'd buy a CD that would come, you'd get Windows 95 and then Windows 98, and it was very easy to say, okay, this is a piece of software, it's been security checked. Most software that's built today is updated dozens of times a day with tiny increments of improvements, which means it's potentially the kind of registration or legislation you would use to manage that is completely different.
So what can be done to help regulators keep up with digital innovation?
I think it is the obligation of industry leaders like ourselves to participate in forming some of those regulatory frameworks, because we know what's going to be possible in 5 or 10 years from now, so that we're trying to get ahead of the curve as opposed to running behind technology.
As manufacturers integrate more and more digital solutions into their end-to-end production processes, so regulators have to ensure they stay ahead of these changes. But the speed of change is ever increasing. So in part 3, we'll look at what the future holds for manufacturers in the B2C sector. There's a monumental shift in manufacturing underway, which is underpinned by advances in digital technology. But what does further digital innovation mean for the future of manufacturing in the B2C sector, and what does it mean for society?
It's always very difficult to predict the future, and I don't have a crystal ball.
No. But you have experience, and I think one has to make those sort of guesses, don't you? Do you have a vision of what that might?
Yeah, we are, and we are also looking at some of the technology and what they can print. So we are using 3D printing to do prototypes. Next step is to use 3D printing to do actual products, because 3D printing enables you to get some beautiful design, new shapes. So it's still not scalable, too expensive to do millions of products. But I'm sure that in the coming years it will mature, it will evolve, and we will be able to do 3D printing true products.
Right.
And we are working on that. We are partnering with startups, with some tech partners to make sure that at the very early stage we seize these technological evolutions. All this transformation is fun. It's fun and exciting. It's true that the consumers are evolving, that the consumers are more and more demanding. But for us, in the operations team, it's a lot of excitement of looking at new technology, looking at how we can combine them, how we can use them, how we can tweak them.
For me, the very interesting thing is to see how big customization becomes by itself. What percentage of products ultimately will be customized. Some retailers see this at 30%, but other people see it closer to 5 or 10. And then really, I think the interesting thing after that will be this idea of on-demand and how quickly that gets adopted by brands.
Manufacturing on demand will also enable localized production near to the consumer.
So you know where everyone lives when they buy, so therefore you can pick a manufacturing location that makes sense for them. So there is also potential huge benefits to that in terms of the sustainability of shipping products internationally around the world, but also from a brand's perspective, they can get things to consumer much more quickly.
And you're saying this technology has the power to disrupt really the fundamentals of international trade, is what you're talking about.
Manufacturing is becoming more distributed because the benefits of centralizing it are being reduced as technology gets better. And therefore it does become more and more interesting to actually manufacture near your customer.
And you really see a future where one can manufacture on demand for the specific client, bespoke, but for everybody.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that model, if it becomes much more widespread, what sort of impact on society do you think it'll have?
I think it's twofold. The first is really that it means that we get access to a more unique product rather than all having to conform to a mass-produced product. And I think the second side of it is really the elimination of waste in a big way, which is that you don't have stock of product that you might not sell that might go to waste. So I think there's a huge sustainability benefit as well.
What impact does Stéphane Lanouzel think that the digital tech revolutionising his industry will have on society?
I'm a very optimistic person in terms of the digital transformation, and I don't believe of that Terminator scary movie, Rise of the Robots, because the digital transformation is really using the technology to help our consumers, to help our employees, to make their life easier, to bring the right product at the right moment. It's all about making our life easier and making us focus on different things and having more time to spend with your kids, to go out and to benefit from life.
Peter Herweg has a message for manufacturers looking into the future.
To be able to be still around in 20 to 30 years, they need to engage into the digitization journey today and try out some of the things, see how they can change their business model, how they can adapt to the trends that are out there. One thing is for certain, if you don't start, you're going to be out of business in the future.
Manufacturing is undergoing a seismic shift with huge implications for manufacturers and for consumers. Remember that scarf? Well, here it is. Personalised, made on demand, made just a few miles from where I live. It's the realisation of a new manufacturing era, all represented in a single product. And it keeps me nice and warm.
I.O.T, powering the digital economy. Brought to you by Schneider Electric.